Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gaming Powerups. On today, it's going to be the first episode of a ongoing series of honest reviews. So I will complete games, or at least get through a bit of the game to be given an honest review of things I liked about it, things I didn't like about it, and would I recommend it to a friend or not. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so in today's video, on today's honest review, we're going to be taking a look at the game over my shoulder, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. I imagine Pokemon Let's Go Eevee is fairly similar, except that you get Eevee as your companion as opposed to Pikachu. So I got this game at Christmas time, and I was able to just start playing it a bit and then get into it more and more. And it was one of those games, just like I play with most Pokemon games. I'll pick it up for an hour or two, and then I'll set it down, get onto something else, and keep going back to it. I found it was very faithful to the original source material. I really enjoyed the fact that it was, for the most part, the same game as Pokemon Yellow. So I've got five positives and five negatives that I found about the game, and then kind of give it my final thought on the game experience as a whole. So without further ado, number five, again, staying on that tone of just being, really faithful to the original source material. From when you get the Pokemon, when you get Pikachu, when you get Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, they all are in the same area of what you need to get, where you would find them in the original. All of the map layout is all the same. Almost down to like every trainer spot is exactly the same. The only difference is that a couple of the trainer types have changed their names, like the bird catcher is now like Rocker and little things like that. But for the most part, it stayed really, really true to the original source material, which I really enjoyed. Number four. So leveling up with catching Pokemon felt less grindy. So the mechanic that they introduced into this game was that instead of having a battle every wild Pokemon you encounter, you would just catch them. So you'd have the ability to catch them, almost a similar screen if you've ever played Pokemon Go on your phone. Very similar, except you would use a button, and then you would gesture throw your Pokeball to try to catch the Pokemon. So it was interesting because you were able to catch more of the same Pokemon. You got a catch bonus. So if you caught a Pidgey, and then you caught another Pidgey, and then you caught another one, if you catch up to 5 or 6 or 7, if you kept catching the same one, their overall stats would be better. You'd have the increased chance of finding a shiny Pokemon, and then you find either small Pokemon or big Pokemon, and you got like just their attributes. So you were able to get more XP from that as well. So if it was like a first throw, great throw or excellent throw, it would be, multiplied by the fact that it was a big or a small Pokemon, stuff like that. Number three, so Pokeball Plus, which is this little bad boy right here, worked as the controller, which I thought was fantastic. It has a workable joystick. So the joystick works just like this. The button is very clicky. You also have a button on the top as well. And it glows when you're catching Pokemon, which I thought was really cool too, because once you gesture throw your Pokeball, whatever Pokemon you're attempting to catch would actually make the sound. The color ring would change to, the most appropriate color to the Pokemon you caught, but you would also hear their battle cry or their little growl, which I thought was really interesting. It was a really cool touch on that. Overall, controller build is really good. Like, it really impressed me. Like, I really just thought, seeing the commercials on it was like, it's just kind of gimmicky. Like, I thought it was kind of one of those, like, you're just pretending to throw, but it's not actually the controller. Like, they've actually, pretty much fit a Joy-Con almost in a Pokeball, which is really cool. The catch mechanic, it was very addictive at first, and I'll get into the catch mechanic in my other part of the list. For the first little bit of the game, it was really cool. It's cool to be able to gesture throw and try to catch Pokemon. It was, it's fairly responsive. but it felt more immersed into my my Pokemon adventure. Actually using a Pokeball to try to catch Pokemon, which is really cool. You don't need it. Side note, you don't need it. It is, again, just another controller. You can use the Joy-Con, your right side Joy-Con, if it's on the TV or if it's on tablet mode, but you don't have the Joy-Con attached to it. And you can also use it in handheld mode. I never used the one Joy-Con because I just felt like it wouldn't be very comfortable in my hand just using the one. I have a fairly large hand. The Pokeball Go Plus is not very big, but it does fit very well in my hand. It was comfortable. We're just using the one Joy-Con was a little bit weird. So I did play it in handheld on the latter part of the game. But using the Pokeball Plus was great in the beginning of the game. Introduction of the battle trainers. So there was certain more higher level trainers throughout the world. And you were able to go up and battle them more than once. I think you were able to go back and battle them once you beat the Elite Four. I never went back to go battle them again, but you would get different items from them. You would get Pokemon candies, usually Pikachu candies. So it almost kind of worked as your carbs, as your protein. So things that were to increase the stats of Pokemon. So they kind of got rid of that and they just added in candies. So you were able to give those to your Pokemon and level up their stats. So if you got specific candies, they were for that Pokemon's, for instance, a Pikachu candy, you were able to increase all of the stats by 1. So those battle trainers were cool because they would also give you rare TMs that you wouldn't find anywhere else, with certain exclusive moves. What else? You would get just more items and stuff like that, and it was an ability to get just more XP from battling because you didn't battle normally in your random encounters. So it was you were just catching Pokemon. So if you kind of wanted to get more of that fighting mechanic in, it was a good option to do that. They were all completely optional. You don't have to go in there. There was no key component to playing a game. They don't auto trigger when you walk by them. You actually have to go and talk to them. So if you don't want to, by all means, you don't have to, but it's a cool little option that they included in there. The random encounters have changed. What? They've kind of broken the mold on it. Hands up, how many times you played a Pokemon game, you got in the grass and you're like, oh, it's another Pidgey. Me. It's definitely been me. I know it's been all of us, because you couldn't see them before. So the really, really cool thing that they changed on this is when you're exploring the grass is that you actually see the Pokemon pop up in the grass. So you can kind of avoid some of them too. So if you're like, okay, I've caught 563 Rattatas, I really don't want any more, you didn't have to catch them. So it was kind of cool. You could avoid them. Your Pokemon computer wasn't there anymore, which was kind of sad to see go. I kind of liked going to the Poke Center and swapping out my Pokemon, but you could do it all on the fly now. You had your party Pokemon, and then you had Pokemon that were kind of in the Poke bank. It was the Pokemon pocket of the bag, but you were able to access them at any given time. You could transfer your Pokemon between there and in your party at any given time, which was kind of a cool thing that you didn't have to go all the way to a Poke Center to do that. You could hot swap Pokemon at any given time that you wanted to. And then one bonus point that I did really like about the game that they added on. So with you using, your companion Pikachu, or with using Eevee, I can only speak with Pikachu because I'm unsure of what the Eevee set of moves. Words are hard sometimes. What the certain set of moves that you would get. So what Pikachu was really cool is it showed if you were using your Pikachu and what you need to do in Pokemon Yellow. So if anybody's played the original Pokemon Yellow, to do certain things in there, you needed to have your Pikachu in your party. It had to be happy. It didn't faint a lot. Won a lot of battles and stuff like that. In this game, it's even more important because I'll get into it in the next part of the list of why it's important to have your Pikachu in your party. But they've definitely helped beef up Pikachu as well. I know when I first played through the original Pokemon games, Pikachu was not my number one choice for an electric Pokemon. If I was doing a regular playthrough, then yes, just because there wasn't anybody else that had electric moves. But, if I was playing through a Game Shark and just kind of making my, magic team, Zapdos is usually the first one for Gen 1. So It's really cool though is that they give you exclusive moves that Pikachu can learn in certain Poke Centers. So there's the trainers will go there and they'll you'll talk to them and they're like, oh I see that you're a really good trainer for Pikachu. So you got to learn Zippy Zap, which was an electric move that was had a lot of damage. You got to learn Floaty Flop, which was a flying move, which was kind of cool because the Pikachu got the balloons like the old trading cards. And the last exclusive move was the Surf move for Pikachu, which was really cool. So you had Pikachu learn electric move, which it's an electric type. Learn a flying type move and a water type move. So the water type move is really cool anytime that you got into a rock or especially ground type Pokemon against Pikachu, because once it's at a high level, bam, one hit KO, and it was great. So now on to the top 5 negative negative items on the docket, as they say, for Pokemon, not in any specific order, but I guess number 5 would be any of the legendary Pokemon, or for Snorlax, you would battle them first and then have the ability to catch them. So it's a neat idea because you at least get to battle them. I do like the fact that if you don't succeed in catching them, if you just go back to that area, I think it's after like a couple hours or something like that, or maybe it's the next time you boot up the game, they would be there for you. I'm just so used to saving before I go and battle them that if I didn't catch them, I would have probably just restarted the game. But I'm lucky enough to be able to get all of them except Mewtwo. Mewtwo was the one that evaded me, going in with a level 70 Mewtwo, and I only had a party that had I think my highest was like 57. So that was kind of the only drag, was with having a Master Ball for Mewtwo. It was like, well, regardless, it doesn't matter. So you have to wear them down first. So going back and having to have higher level Pokemon to be able to take it out, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. Like, I just beat the game. I just wanted to catch Mewtwo and then finish up the last couple of side quests that they had left in the game. But it's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely one of the things that I noticed that they probably didn't need to include, because you went through kind of a grindy battle with that Pokemon, and then you needed to try to catch it, and it wasn't a guaranteed catch. So it wasn't something that like it couldn't run away or anything like that. You very well could have the Pokemon run away. So that was a little bit underwhelming for me. Another thing that I have to mention, so we'll say number 4, was the Pokemon types. So in Gen 1 was written a specific way with the amount of types of Pokemon, like what they had, like their attributes. So, you had electric, you had fire, you had ghost. So with the introduction of fairy in Gen 6, the introduction of dark in Gen 2, the introduction of steel in Gen 2, made Gen 1 a little bit, made the playthrough different. So, I mean, not necessarily a bad thing, but, for it being, true to its roots, I felt it kind of slipped with that. With adding in those new Pokemon types, it made some of the battles harder, I felt, than they needed to be. Definitely fighting the psychic types. And then if you had a dark type Pokemon, it was like, one-shot kills. So I could have lived without that. I feel like they could have pulled that out, because you, at least for now, can only put Gen 1 Pokemon in there. I bet if they do, a number 2, if they do, Pokemon Gold and Silver remake or Crystal remake, that you could maybe transfer in between the two, and maybe, that was the idea behind it. But it felt like that kind of took away from the, the plan of knowing how to go in there and then being like, oh, wait, this one has a dark move, and, or this one has a fairy move. And, they weren't very prominent in the game. But there was definitely, getting one shot killed by a Zubat, that new bite that is now a dark move, with your Alakazam as you're trying to level them up, kind of sucked. So it was, that was a little bit of a learning curve with that. Again, not anything deal breaking, but it was just something that just kind of shied away from the source material a bit. No bike, which I thought was really weird. So you could have your Pokemon, you could have your Pokemon pals walk alongside with you. Some of them were actually rideable. Like if you're out on the ocean, you have a Lapras, you can ride on a Lapras instead. If you don't, you just ride on Pikachu with a surfboard, which is kind of cool. You could ride on Charizard's back, and there gets to be, now there's no bike. There's not that bike only area down Route 17, I believe, if I can remember correctly off the top of my head, where before you had to be mounted on a bike to go down. You could only really go down. You couldn't really go back up. In here, if you're on top of an Aerodactyl, a Charizard, or a Dragonite, you could fly up if you're on their back, and then you kind of see like the what's below them. So you could do it already before you beat the Elite Four, but you couldn't go very high. And in that same area, once you're there, you could go up even higher, so you could see encounter different Pokemon. You can encounter a Dragonite, a Charizard up there. So it's kind of cool, but a different chance to see some of the more rare Pokemon or Pokemon you wouldn't normally see. But it was kind of sucked not having a bike. You don't really get to run much faster than you normally would. So, and again, like I just was really hoping that it was going to kind of be almost a carbon copy, just newer graphics. But no bike. It was kind of like, I miss not having a bike. Why they took that away, I'm unsure, but, with them including that like sky area, which I thought was kind of a good way to make up for it. So no more HMs, which I thought was really weird. So now they call them secret techniques. Only Pikachu learns them, but it doesn't take away from any of its movesets. So it's kind of a hit and miss for me. So no HMs. I'm like, I just remember all of, the HMs again. I'm looking for the nostalgia of it. And, some of the moves were good. Like Surf was probably one of the best ones out of all of the HMs in Gen 1. But they did add them in as TMs, so you could teach them to other Pokemon, which was good. But yeah, they were just secret techniques, and you couldn't use them in battle. It was only meant to be used outside of battle, which was good because, again, you didn't have to take away any of your regular moveset to incorporate them. But the nostalgia factor just was like, it's not HM's secret techniques. This is weird. But, again, it's, they took something away, but they gave you something better. So it wasn't like you were missing out on anything, but just if you were looking for that, specific thing, like I'm a little bit weird for, it was definitely missing. So, again, not anything, major, not anything, is more just, cosmetic than anything. So, and then lastly is going back to the Pokeball Plus, going back to the catch mechanic. I found on about halfway through the game, I couldn't stand using this thing anymore. I always had a charge, so it was never like low on battery or anything like that. And I always played with my Switch, either right on the TV, or on my monitor, on my computer desk, so I'm right there. I just found that once you started throwing a few Pokeballs at a time, because the Pokemon got harder to catch, it wasn't as responsive. So you'd like throw it, and then the ball would just dip right down, or it would fly over the Pokemon. So it was like, really, you would have to pull your arm back, and then just let your arm go forward. And I felt like it was more work than it needed to be. There's not an option to turn it off, so it's not like you can just be like hit a button and just throw a Pokeball at it. So the only way kind of around that is being in handheld mode, because you can hold it and you can kind of aim, because also aiming with the Pokeball Plus wasn't very easy. With handheld mode, you could kind of just tilt with the gyros that were in the Switch, so you can kind of move it around and get the angled right. And the catch mechanic itself just got old after a while. It was just the same repetitive motion of just throwing a Pokeball. Again, in the first part of the game, it was awesome. It was the coolest thing. But once you start to put, I put 40 hours-ish into it. And after 40 hours of just doing this to try to catch Pokemon without any other option to have, it kind of grew old. Again, these are nothing that will make or break the game. Really, I was jotting out my list, and I said to myself, if these are really the only real negatives I could come up with, there's no game-breaking glitches, there's no bugs, there's no anything that I didn't really actually enjoy the game. I would say my biggest complaint would be the Pokeball Plus and the catch mechanic in general. But again, if you're in handheld mode, maybe using the Joy-Con was a little bit easier as well. But again, I never really tried that. That would probably be my biggest, that'd be my number one negative for it. I know a lot of people talk about it and they're like, man, the catch mechanic's really cool. It's cool, but it's borderline gimmicky for me. I liked playing Pokemon Go. But again, like that was on a phone. Now we're playing on a console, and I feel like I should have the option to be able to turn it off. It's kind of like Mario Kart, how on the Wii version, you could only use the motion controls, which I didn't enjoy the Mario Kart for Wii as much, just because I just didn't find it very responsive. You go to turn and it wasn't turning. So, then they learned, okay, we can turn them on and off. So I kind of wish that Pokemon had the same thing, or at least maybe with Sword and Shield, hopefully they give you that option to turn it on and off. So final thought on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. For someone who's never played a Pokemon game before, super approachable. It doesn't hold your hand too much, but it explains enough of the game that you're able to play it. For us veteran players like myself, it was a great trip down memory lane. Again, top 5 negatives to me, because I wanted to be able to put through 5, because I had 5 as my limit. It was kind of hard for me I was kind of nitpicking, I found a little bit with some of them, with the no bike, but you could ride your Pokemon. My biggest one takeaway from it is that just know that the Pokeball Plus, see, words are very hard for me sometimes. The Pokeball Plus does get gimmicky. It does feel like it's, it doesn't sync properly with the Switch sometimes. But overall, amazing game, amazing atmosphere, the amazing music. It's the HD remake that I could have only, thought of in my dreams. So it is a very fun game to play. It was a very fun 40-ish hours that I put into it. I don't regret it. I couldn't recommend the game to any more to veteran players, new players. If your kids haven't played it, I've got young kids, and Pokemon's kind of the next level they've gotten to, because it's been the talk around the house of, okay, well, now they're at reading level, they're at reading age now, so that's kind of they're working their way to getting towards a Pokemon game and being able to play through it. So being able to play Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, I think, would be a really good option for them. So that has been my honest review. So I really appreciate you guys spending the time with me, listening to me talk about Pokemon for this honest review, and I hope to have many more in the series. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming out today. And you guys know where to find me: Instagram, The Gaming Powerups. You guys can find me on Twitch at The Gaming Powerups, Twitter at Gaming Powerups. And guys, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, ping the bell notification, and maybe we'll see you on the next video. So until then, guys, game on.